Welcome to Contra Gentile, Season 2, Episode 23.
If you didn't know to form the heart, what you pushing up your ass?
I made bruschetta and it's really good.
Truth will essentially just reveal itself to the
Did
audience.
you say that I'm predisposed to like Sagittarius?
Quit being a fag.
I want to get in on this gin and
cheers.
tonic business again, the Tanqueray gin and tonic.
That's good.
The lime juice, man.
Mm-hmm.
You just skip the garnish, buy a bottle of lime juice, and sprinkle some in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit bigger of a tumbler, so when I filled it with tonic, I think it's a little bit lighter on the alcohol. Yeah. But I mean,
fine.
We have the whole bottle here, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, do you want to eat cake?
No, I want to do that later.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, why? Just cause?
Yeah, I'm
No.
Yeah, I just want to do it later.
Okay.
I'll be a little more intoxicated while I'm eating the cake.
So how's life?
Good.
Well, it snowed. It's now snow hell outside.
Mm-hmm.
What's your least favorite snow driving habit that people have here?
Oh,
like what makes you want to throw your steering wheel?
Driving slowly on the left lane.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just that if you're going to drive slow, just go to the right lane.
Yeah.
I actually was kind of ranting about this on my way in to Amanda's because I was just, I was reading something on Fake book before.
Facebook for people who don't know how you talk.
Facebook, Fake book. And then they were just somebody was writing on there calling drivers like me assholes. Like you're just passing everybody and throwing snow on their windshield and everything. And so I don't know. It boggles my mind that Alaskan drivers have this sense of assholeness reverse from what my intuition is. My intuition is that you're entitled if you drive slowly and expect everybody to drive as slow as you. Mm-hmm. Because you're saying that you have to drive like I am driving, and so they demand it by going on the left lane, driving 50 miles per hour.
Which is generally the clearest lane.
Yes, yeah.
Snow, yeah.
And they drive really, really slow so that everybody else has to drive slow behind them.
But then they get mad when you kick up snow to get around them.
Yes, exactly.
Their lane is the cleanest.
Yes, yeah. It's like, well, yeah, but it to me it seems like when you demand others to drive as you do, and you hold up traffic, like I that's being entitled. Right? Yeah. You passing people is not being entitled. It's actually kind of respectful. It's like I'm not going to tailgate you. I'm
That's
not going to
passing is for.
Yes, like I'm not going to honk at you. Like if I was tailgating, flashing my lights, yeah, then you're an asshole. But if you're just like, okay, you want to drive slow, fine, I'm just going to go around you. You're not really being an asshole. You're being courteous by saying that I'm not going to demand you to drive as fast as me, but if you're going to drive this slowly, I'm just going to go around you then. Mm-hmm. But it seems like a lot of Alaskans, and probably in other states it's the same thing, but but in general, I always hear this idea that people think those who drive fast and weave between lanes are assholes. And to me, it's the reverse. It's like, no, the assholes are the ones who
don't move,
who drive slowly, and they demand everybody to drive as slow as they do.
Yeah,
it's like that is entitled. That is entitlement. Is to think that the way that you drive is
because there is an interesting reaction that people have to someone weaving in traffic, especially when it's ahead of them. They're like,
yes.
Like what an asshole. It's like, he's not even next to you.
I know.
Like, he's not doing anything to you.
Yes.
He's not doing anything to anybody. Yeah. He might be being reckless. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's like the asshole behavior. He's not being.
Yes. Like if he's driving, flipping people off, fuck you, honking. Yes, then you're being an asshole. But if you're just, cruising and go, I'm just going around these people because I want to go the speed that I want to go. That's just, I think it's being courteous.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. But I just get really irritated when people start complaining.
Mine is when they put their blinker on in the snow.
Yeah,
it's like they'd never get over.
Mm-hmm.
It happened like 3 times on the way here. And I'm like, get over.
Yes, yeah.
Like, fuck over.
Yeah,
like you had your blinker on for like a minute.
Lane has too much snow buildup. I'm like, swerve.
It was like in downtown.
Yeah, I know.
They'll like start like coming into downtown, by Gamble.
Yes, just
and they're just
go.
like not getting over.
Yeah,
and I'm like, Go! I don't know what you're gonna do. I can't,
Yeah, I
I can't
know.
predict your movement
You're
now.
signaling that
I
you're going to
can't go
go.
around you because
Yes.
you're signaling wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
I don't
I
know
hate
if
that.
when I try you're gonna get over and we're gonna get an accident. You know, like
Yeah.
I can't tell. When you tell me you're gonna get over,
Yes, yeah.
or turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny yesterday. There was this one guy, you know, when you pass him, some people get mad.
Yeah.
So he started tailgating me.
In the snow.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not going to mess with this. So I just move over to the right lane and let him pass me. And he probably was flipping me off. I really don't know. But then then I just went back to the lane. And then just moments later, he fell in the ditch. And I just
Like
was
moments later.
Yes, moments later.
Like
I
30
just-
seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, about 30 seconds to a minute, like 36 seconds. Yeah. And I just laughed and I just passed him. I was like, whatever, man. I mean, you're not dead. You're going to call somebody to tow you
my
out. I'm not going
God.
to. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
He tried to perform for you.
Mm-hmm. But
That's amazing.
one of these days I'm going to get mine and fall in a ditch. I know I will. I haven't yet. Almost 40 years old. I've been driving since I was 16.
I haven't either.
Yep. No, I haven't
I
been
always
in the ditch yet.
recover.
Mhm.
There's been
Yeah.
moments where it would be
Oh,
possible.
of course. Yes. Yeah, me too.
But it never
Yeah.
happens. That's something people don't know about riding in snow or like driving in snow.
Yeah.
Is that
It's fun.
you suggest to the car where it should go,
Yes. Yeah.
and then the car will just do it. Like
know,
you
yeah.
can't throw the wheel or anything.
Yes.
So like, maybe go over here.
Yeah, it's
Just-
overcorrection. Most people's errors are just they overcorrect. They feel themselves slipping too much and they go, ah, or they let go, ah, you know, and then it starts to press on a brake, which turns into a fucking bullet, and you just like, yeah, just think rationally, you know. That's all.
Now it's a ballistic
It's like
trajectory.
It's not stopping. It's like, let go of the fucking brake.
Roll for a second. Yeah, you lock it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, do we just jump in or do we have?
No. I
All
think we
right.
could
So
jump in.
shall I?
Yeah.
So this week we will be mentally preparing myself to cover Sexual Personae by Camille Paglia. I think it was 1990 is when it came out.
Was it?
I think it was 1990. I believe it is Paglia's doctoral thesis. That she would have. I think her doctorate is either in art criticism or something adjacent.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what the book is. It's just kind of art
Yeah.
criticism, but
But
I don't-
attempting to flourish out a little more commentary on, I guess, society and philosophical ideas in general.
yes.
Yeah. Attempting
So
to.
what? Really quickly, we should kind of try to sum up what it is,
Yeah.
and then we can give a commentary on it.
Yeah, I think you should sum up and.
Sexual Personae is or Personae, as the audiobook reader would have led us to believe. The beautiful boy. Sexual Personae is an endeavor to analyze the representation and inspiration, artistic inspiration from like, or the representation of, and the artistic inspiration from like sexual archetypes and their manifestation in artists and how they influence artists' work, I think is kind of over time, over history. Is that kind of an easy?
Yeah, I would say that's probably in general what it is.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
It just explores the way that especially women have been portrayed in art and the way that the feminine archetype,
the beautiful boy, but
the beautiful boy, which she would say is a feminine, which we wouldn't. We can get into that. The way that she says archetypes are different in their archetypal nature than we would.
Yes.
By quite a lot, but
I guess I mean she does kind of relate beauty in general more towards femininity,
which we would not.
Right. Yes. But I don't know whether
Which
she
we've
would,
said explicitly on the podcast many times.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
being inclined towards the aesthetic is archetypally masculine because it
Right, yes.
requires the intellect and reason,
Yes,
which
yeah.
is archetypally masculine. You know, the whole
Yeah.
thing. But,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. I think for starters, I think this is not only true for this one, but this is also true for the other two texts that we read. You know, definitely including Michael Knowles. Is that the explanations that she and Foucault and Knowles gives many times is an explanation, but it's an explanation lacking in really answering the questions of why this happens. Right. And so it's similar to, for example, if I were to take this glass and if you threw it against the wall just randomly, right? Yeah. And you were to ask me, Jeremy, why the fuck did you do that?
Like when I throw something, it's a glass moving towards the
yes,
wall,
yeah,
and then when it shatters.
So if my explanation was, neurons firing in my brain through the arms and flexing
what
of the
does
muscles.
What happens when I throw something?
Yes, yeah. And I give this really deep explanation of how the activities that happen for me to throw it against the wall and be like, that's why I threw it.
Or not even to answer. You don't even say that's why I threw it.
Yeah, I know you don't. Yeah, exactly. You just end like as if that is a sufficient explanation. And so it is an explanation of efficient causal relations. And really, if you take it in the Aristotelian sense, if you have four aspects of reality in which you could analyze something, really these explanations in these three books is only taking the material cause as well as the efficient cause and leaving out the formal and the final cause. And so it doesn't really fully satisfactorily answer the question. Just like, okay, this is interesting that these certain, I guess, presentations of beauty, the sexual personae.
So what is a sexual personae? From what? How did she?
Did she give a definition? I don't think so. I don't
think she fleshed out a definition.
Yeah.
There maybe at the beginning. Sexual personae, she talks about how personae are masks and stuff, and about how a personae is an affect that you assume for a certain purpose or something, or like in a certain art, like a character is a personae because it's a mask for the artist or something.
Yeah.
You could almost say sexual archetype is a very similar.
When I was reading it, that's basically how I interpreted the persona. It was just you're talking about the sexual archetype. Like, what is it that we find archetypically, maybe perfect, but at least archetypically beautiful, in a sexual way. So it is erotic. It is about eros. It isn't just about the recognition of beauty, but its inseparability from the erotic.
Which is very Freudian in the way that it manifests in the work. It's extremely. I don't know if you would agree 100% with. It doesn't necessarily have a strong thesis like the other things we've covered have, in the same way that they have. That just doesn't really. Yeah. They loosely present a framework. And then just give examples of a framework instead of explaining the framework itself and justifying it.
Yes, and that's basically what I was saying in terms of the explanation, is that it is an explanation, but it's a very
it doesn't explore. It doesn't explore why, which means that technically it's not philosophy at all. But and that what philosophy is the pursuit of knowledge and truth, wisdom. That's what it is. And if you're not.
It has to be a complete explanation to be philosophical.
Yes.
Right. You have to give the efficient material causal explanations, but you also need this formal and final causation in order for it to be an actual complete answer.
So what was I saying is the loose thesis that I might ascribe to it, because it works.
I think you heard a banging.
Another banging? We heard that earlier.
I know. It might be upstairs, but
it totally could be. Yeah, like over there. I was trying to. It's because it's similar. I think that she made much stronger observations than Foucault did. So I don't want to say that she doesn't say. She makes a lot of claims about.
She does,
the interaction between the sexes and stuff, but it's not like it doesn't. There's no therefore huge universal claim at the end or something, because that's what I was telling you when we were like halfway through it. I was like, is she gonna like tie it up at the end and like tell me why I read all this? This one actually had less of a conclusion than the other two. It just ended with Dickinson and then just it didn't spend any time reviewing or covering kind of what had been said. which I found striking. So I remember, we listened to it in audiobook and whatever. And we've discussed the way in which Jeremy and I have a very difficult time retaining information when we read it off of a page.
Yes, yeah.
So listening is much better for us. But I remember finishing it, and I had like listened to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then when they were like, and this concludes sexual, and I was like, wait. I have to go. I went back like 20 minutes, and I was like, did I miss the conclusion?
No, there's no conclusion.
No,
Yeah.
it just finishes with her description of.
I really do think Knowles' book is the only one that has an actual conclusion.
It does. Yeah.
Because Foucault's really doesn't either, and neither does this one. And that's very...
This one had less of a conclusion than Foucault's.
Than even Foucault's? Yeah, I would agree.
Because Foucault at least had a concluding chapter.
Yes, yeah. It didn't say
It
much,
was called,
but
yeah,
yes,
it was called Conclusion or something, wasn't it? I much prefer the claims she made in this. Because, what you were saying a couple days ago is like that sex is inherently more interesting as a topic than like mental illness through, which isn't necessarily uninteresting, but
but sex is obviously.
She literally, her chapter on Marquis de Sade was extreme.
Right,
Nuns all linked by a a chain of dildos. And but what I'm trying to ascribe a thesis to it is that all. I want to see if you agree with me or not, because I was trying to think of something earlier today if I was going to just sum it up, like what her argument was, that all great art is most fundamentally inspired by like sexual confusion, because that's kind of every single all the art she analyzed and the artists and the pieces and the way that she analyzed them was essentially like this person was struggling with their gender identity, and they had issues with their mother, or they had issues with the fact that they were a man and they wanted to be a woman, or they identified with a gender. It was that's why I said it was Freudian, because Freudian said all psychosis is fundamentally sexual repression. Is like kind of a Freudian line. This is essentially a Freudian. It's Freudian thought like applied to art.
Right.
Like all great art is fundamentally sexual.
Right.
At its most primary inspiration, and its most basic level is like, which I don't think is true at all.
No, I don't either. But yeah, I could see that she might agree with that. I really don't know,
because I don't know. But that's again any actual thesis I extract from the text.
Yes,
is something I had to extract from it, and if just upon reading it, or listening to it or whatever, I didn't read it, but I spent 35 hours listening to it, so I can claim to have gone through it.
It's funny because like many of the many of the like interviews and stuff that you could find online with her, she seems very, very much against people like Foucault, and just the postmodernists in general. What I find funny really is how similar she is to them.
Yes,
it's like, okay, yes, you're criticizing them for being like the one with Peterson. She was kind of just poking fun at how they were just like coming in as this extravagant writers who just kind of speak poetically and convince people and everything. And then when you read her, it's like, but you're literally doing the same thing. You're not fully saying anything. You're doing historicism the same way Foucault did.
It's gonna be stronger this time.
Okay, good. You're not answering much of the, I would say, fundamental questions that one can derive from these observations.
Because we both have said, well, I've actually read Sexual Personae halfway through like 8 times. I could never get through it because it's so laborious. It's a super dense text. And it's also doesn't really give you a reason to read it unless you just really like the way she describes stuff, which I like the way she describes stuff. I think she's entertaining. She's intelligent. A lot of her observations she makes are quite astute and interesting. So it's not that I don't like it. It's just that I halfway through it, I'm just like, I don't know why. Like, I just like,
Yeah, but why?
give
why?
me something. Like,
Yes, yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when they, because that's kind of especially in like the Twitter sphere in which the show exists, and a lot of people I know online and in real life, or in real life, quote unquote, but,
Yeah.
and kind of on the same wavelength, is that like finishing sexual personae is like a huge
Task.
Well, it's like a rite of passage a little bit.
Right.
Like, you tweet like, I finished sexual personae, and everyone like freaks out, and they're like, oh yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's like it's like you've had your first communion or something, or like, it's like you're
Yeah.
little into whatever this is, the like the Church of Sexual Deviance, or like, I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Gender confusion, Gnosticism, etc. I don't know what we would call this, but I don't get it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it's. People talk about reading it, and it's a huge thing. I haven't ever heard anyone like orate on what they got out of it.
Right.
Because again, I've read Vamps and Tramps, which is much more readable. I have a copy of that, and I should lend it to you just to read a couple. Like her, I don't remember what the title was. It's her. I think it opens with a transcription of one of her videos, or like her TV series she did in the UK.
Yeah.
In like the 90s, but then the next one is like, it's like a exploration of like sexual assault and stuff, and
she gets into it quite a bit in this book.
Yes,
and everything, yeah.
But that's much because it's an essay.
Yeah,
she's an incredible essayist. I like her essays a lot, but when it comes to something big, with like that, this would require a lot of. It would require a second volume. If you really wanted to explore every single thing that she attempted to, like if you really, really wanted to analyze Wordsworth and Coleridge and stuff. And like,
but I also do think a lot of it could just been cut.
Yes.
And that's really it. It's
pick 3 chapters and just expand them.
It's like, okay, you have so much examples, and this is what she does. And it's kind of like in my field, in analytical philosophy, there's actually positions that people get in which they're just researchers. And within the research, they're like poll takers. Yeah, sure.
Go on.
Yeah. They're people, not takers, but they're people that give out polls to gain information, and that's basically all that they do. And then they give it to the theoretical philosophers to make sense of the data. And so, what it seems to me like a lot of this text is like, it's good research where there's just a lot of data that you can take from it, but data. Yes,
that was so good.
Data does not speak for itself. No. It's like, good, you have all this information about these historical archetypes of the beautiful boy, and yet you want that to be an explanation of the archetypal nature of beauty displayed in art. It's like, that's not really an explanation. All you're giving me is examples, and so and this is what I mean by that. It's undirected. It's not directed. It's like you're just spewing shit out. It's like, but give me a direction. Like, what are you saying about it? And there's so much that can be said. And then whenever she does, and this is the funny part, is that whenever she does attempt to do that, like you would probably find about 3 or 4 lines where she attempts to do that. She's always just wrong. And it's like, okay.
Do you have an example off the top of your head?
Yeah, like for example, when she was calling Leonardo and Michelangelo homosexuals, right? And then just randomly, and then she says, well, homosexuals, and then she kind of goes back to Freud and how Freud, which this part I was ignorant of. I didn't know the one to blame of my objection against the homosexual as being purely potency goes back to Freud. Apparently before him, and I did a little research after that, and apparently before him there is no text in which relates homosexuality to potency, but prior to that it was still more a replacement term for the sodomite, where you have the homosexual and the sodomite, and they kind of interchange with one another. But anyways, she would say that. I was like, well, that's, for one thing, that's not if you're going to describe so much a certain potency, but then the way she described it was that homosexuality is the attraction of the same sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, then everybody is homosexual because everybody can find their same sex attractive. Like, you know, you could go to any guy who's like super, super straight, right? So I just fuck women. I just fucked 5 last night. It's like, you know, the straightest guy. And then, you know, you show him some guy, an actor that's attractive, and be like, do you think girls want to fuck him? You'd be like, of course.
Because he can recognize his beauty.
Yes, he can recognize an attractive man. And so the recognition of attraction of the same sex does not, you know, the term homosexual is just, it's too semantically overloaded. And this is my objection to it constantly, is that it doesn't say much about it. And so to call them that is to already begin to imply that they are ones that maybe partook in sodomist relations with other people, but it wasn't socially acceptable, so they didn't like, there's so much things that conjure up to simply say that they're homosexual. I say, yeah, that's a bad claim. What you could say is that they recognized and they exalted the male figure greater than the female.
They're artists,
and that's it. That's all that you really can say from that. But then to have the semantically overloaded terms that way,
because what is it? It's just that we've criticized the concept of homosexuality as purely potential in its essence. You are ascribing reality to what might be a desire or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
It's almost like the opposite, where it's you by someone being inclined to the masculine, you immediately call them a homosexual and assume that they wanted to butt fuck each other.
Yes, yeah.
Like, because these artists were so concerned with the male form and also the female form. They did. It wasn't like they were just painting. They weren't just. It wasn't just men.
No, yeah, of course.
But,
yeah.
She this kind of work is that potential can come to fruition.
Yes, yeah.
Like the idea that you can ascribe reality to things that aren't real.
Yep, yeah. She did the same thing. The other part that I would say she's just wrong in is really trying to relate Catholicism with paganism. It's like,
okay, so let me...
Yeah.
I have a string of notes for this.
Okay, yeah.
So one criticism we both have of this, it's important to understand that when you are... If you honestly, as an academic or even on your own, want to endeavor to conduct an in-depth investigation and observation of the history of Western art, one ought not skip from 200 BC to like 1500.
Yes.
There is no... Did she mention anything medieval at all?
Not really. The only thing is just kind of skipped over and to talk about the Renaissance.
Because it is objectively true that ancient Greek sculpture is amazing, and art of the Renaissance is amazing. Italian, English, wherever.
Yeah,
they're amazing.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yep.
So some of the greatest art to ever grace the planet. But there's 15. It boggles my mind that people. It does not matter. Pick anyone.
Yes.
It just gets skipped over.
Yeah.
All of the great cathhedrals were built during the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And there's no art to investigate involved.
I know.
There's no aesthetics to investigate.
The humor of like gargoyles, which was around the 1000s, to the 1300s. Yeah. It's like this is something that they could have just investigated because it was amazing. The amount of humor that a gargoyle was pissing in another gargoyle's mouth. It's like you're not gonna investigate that with a sexual personae. There's no goblin guy coming around. It's like this is funny. This is funny shit. They have a great sense of humor. They have some in some of the oldest churches that we could find of the Middle Ages, not of the pre, but like so of the Middle Ages. I think there was one that I saw in the cloister in New York that they brought over from Europe, and I could be wrong, but I think it was from the year 600 or 700, where Christ was just completely stark naked, right? And most of the times what you see later on is like the loincloth and everything, but no, it was like the naked Jesus just hanging there. And it was it's interesting, right? It's interesting because she talks about...
and it's not like the quality of the sculpture is less than it was in the Greeks.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Because when people go like, when the people talk about how medieval art isn't as good, it's like you're literally zooming in on these stupid illuminations and Bibles that
Yes.
people had to paint. Those things were mass produced,
Yes.
relatively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Those were by like craftspeople hired to draw pictures in Bibles to fill up space.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't, and like look at a medieval Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that not?
I know.
That's not worth investigating.
Yes.
Like mosaics
exactly.
came into prominence in the Middle Ages.
Yes. Stained glass windows.
Yeah.
Like some of them are so
They were
magnificent.
inventing mediums of art.
Yes.
in the Middle
All through-
Ages.
yes, exactly. With the different like representations of the devil, you know, the distinctions between fluffiness in terms of good and sharpness of evil. Like there's so many things that one can investigate and come out with much more interesting like understanding of Western civilized art.
And when I was getting irritated with this, I went and did my own little artistic investigation, and I looked up so
Nice.
that painting as a medium was not really an ancient Greek thing. They would paint urns and stuff,
Yes. Yeah.
but like sculpture, playwriting, architecture, etc., were ancient Greek and Roman. I mean, Roman is a loose one because it was like 1,000 years or something. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
hard
yeah.
to really draw lines there. But if you look at the paintings of the Middle Ages, which aren't anything like they are in the Renaissance, I admit that. But if you look at especially stuff of the Italian Middle Ages,
Yes.
Roman Middle Ages, and it's like gold.
Yeah.
Like the art is all gold, and they all have all the saints have the gold. They're like literally like gold leaf paintings and
Yes,
stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah.
murals and stuff. It's worlds better than like ancient Greek urn painting.
Yes, yeah.
So people don't understand apparently that the like art as a craft came to what we know it in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And if you're really honestly want to investigate art history, I don't know why that's not discussed.
Yes.
And well, I do know why it's not discussed.
yeah.
It's because it's Christian.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
actually
yeah, yeah.
Christian.
Yep.
Like, so what was your criticism of her saying that Catholicism is pagan?
So she says it many times. She doesn't
Many
Yes, yeah.
times.
and it's like she keeps-
Catholicism and retaining its pagan. Blah, blah, blah,
Yes,
blah.
exactly. It's like, well, that's just not. That doesn't hold up to scrutiny. You
What does
don't.
pagan mean? It means non-Christian, essentially.
Yes, yeah. Pagan means non-Christian, but it also means anthropomorphic figures.
Yeah.
And this is where Christianity, Catholicism really distinguished itself. You could read any early apologist, you could read Origen, Gregory of Nyssa, Boethius, and Augustine was more against the Manichaeism.
Yeah.
But before that, you read so many articles against paganism, and one of their main gripes about it is the personification of deities, making God into a personal God, and this is what you see again in coming about with Albigensianism and Protestantism. Theistic personalism is a profoundly significant thing in Protestantism as well as Albigensianism, and so to really claim that Catholicism, which was by definition in every aspect of its faith anti-pagan, and then to try to correlate Protestantism as not being pagan, it's stupid. I mean, it's really somebody who didn't take the time to do just cursory research. Something that wouldn't be like, I have to know so much about it. This is something that even a 14-year-old or 15-year-old kid can just research really quick and be like, oh, okay, I see the differences, but basically just buying into the worldview that is presented in the
Can I read my note for this?
Yeah.
There are countless times in the text when Paglia seems to confuse Protestantism with the Christianity that preceded it.
Yeah.
The language she uses regarding Christianity is unclear, resulting in my lack of ability to discern whether or not she actually knows what she's talking about when it comes to Christianity and the heretics that abandoned it at the beginning of the modern period. She incorrectly refers to Catholicism as retaining a pagan sense of aesthetics and ornamentation, which could only be the case if pagans invented the recognition of beauty itself. She uses Christian, Protestant, and Puritan almost interchangeably, so I'm not quite sure she understands what they mean individually. Of course, it would be easy to attribute this distortion to ignorance, but I think she's smarter than that. I just don't. I think she has a weird hatred of Catholicism. I think something.
I do too, but academia in general does.
I know, but she's Italian,
Yes, but I.
so it's hard for me.
The thing is that so like for studying in Leuven, for example. So you're talking about a town, Leuven, whose university, KU Leuven,
In
was,
Belgium.
yeah.
The university that you attended.
Yes, yeah, was founded under Thomistic principles, right?
Yeah.
And so even if you go to a library, it still has like paintings of Aquinas and of Jesus right there in front and everything. And so its founding is that way. But when I spoke to most people, getting their doctorates, when I spoke to most professors there, they just did not know.
Yeah.
It's like I could talk to them, and then you ask them something about the medieval period, and they didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I think in her case, really, it's just ignorance. You can either simply accept the like flawed premises that is given to you by many professors as well as just pop culture, or you just take a second to be like, let me see if what you're telling me is true. And what I'm saying is that she never did that. She didn't take the second to be like, let me see whether anything actually happened for 1,500 years.
1,500 years. Yes. It's because like the Catholic Church built the West.
Yeah.
The West is what it is because the Catholic Church was the preeminent social force for 1,500 years.
Yes.
1,500 years.
Without
how
that,
long? How long is Western history? 3,000 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Is what it is. When did Greeks were what?
In the BC
Aristotle
period,
died like 150 BC or something.
Yeah.
I was shocked to know how soon Christ occurred after Aristotle.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting.
Really not very long at all.
I know, yeah.
Because you think like, oh, that's thousands of years earlier, just the way that it's discussed.
Yeah.
Christ occurred like 250 years after. It's something like that.
Yeah,
It's just, what is that? 10 generations? Something very, that's what? 250 years.
Was it that long? I thought it was a little shorter than that, but was it 250?
I don't know. It's really worth looking up because I want to make the point. And of course, this literally plays into what the show is about. He died in 322, so about 300 years.
Okay, 300. Okay, yeah.
Still, that's nothing. That's
exactly
That's I don't even. I just like it's really, really short.
Yeah,
because Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle were all like alive at the same time.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
They all happened within like 100, 150 years of each other. It was like very, very short.
Yes.
That Greek philosophy really took form.
Yeah. And then basically a lot of the destruction of that was because
so let's take that as so when was we're gonna do a timeline here.
Yeah. Because Alexander the Great, Aristotle was his teacher, and
so badass.
Yeah. And then, he kind of destroyed the entire...
he looks at the Persian Empire and he's like, that's a lot of potential to actualize over there.
I kind of want that. They think their leader is a god.
I want to actualize some potential on their asses.
Yes.
So he was born in 625. So Thales was essentially like the first pre-Socratic.
Yeah.
And then when was Heraclitus? Did they live at the same time?
No. He was after Thales.
But I think it's
200 years. Yeah.
Heraclitus and
Parmenides?
Parmenides.
Yeah, I would think they're more around. They're closer to each other. Maybe 100-year difference.
Okay, so he's 535, and then Parmenides was what year? He was 515. He's 20 years younger.
20 years. Okay,
yeah. So let's say we went from Thales.
Yeah.
To 100 years later, Parmenides and Heraclitus.
Yeah.
And then, what was that? 515, 535?
Yeah, 515, yeah.
So 515, he's actually, so he's younger. And then Aristotle died 200 years after that.
Yes.
That's how much philosophical progress occurred.
Yes.
1,500 years.
Yes.
Yep. They skipped 1,500 years.
Yeah. For commentaries of the beautiful.
That's all. That's really what it is. It's commentary on the beautiful.
I know.
It's primarily what that all is. But they want to. They're actively trying to avoid seriously discussing Christianity.
I know.
As it is. That's the only reason.
Yeah, it can't be of good faith in that sense
at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of. I lost my train of thought really fast. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting point that I thought, or that I don't know if it's interesting or not. Thing that I thought of that I piqued my own interest was you need to finish it. Suck it down.
I did.
Erase. No, you did not.
Oh,
you
without the straw. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you gotta get the. I have to get the ratio right. So why? Let's discuss why they might avoid.
Why they might avoid it?
Discussing Christianity.
I think because then you can't just simply caricature it, right? I think it's easier to caricature Christianity, and talk about Christianity as being merely Protestantism, because Protestantism is a continuation of pagan thought.
That's the funny thing is she separated Protestantism and paganism.
I know, right?
But
Yes.
it's like actually Catholicism was separate, and the puritanical thought is actually more pagan than Catholicism.
Yeah. And so because of that, then she has to begin to explain deep fundamental distinctions about the Western world that you can't simply easily relate back to the beautiful boy. Because, she begins with that great beautiful boy. And then she wants to continue that. And so the 1500 years kind of doesn't support much of the case that she's trying to make.
Which is why it's actually not pagan.
Yes, I know exactly.
She desperately wants to make pagan arguments.
Yes, she does. Yes.
Which is, especially for the 90s, very chic and very fashionable.
Yes,
and very,
yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah.
But it's funny that what their arguments might be is that it's not. They don't want to. It's especially to the American eye, medieval art is so overtly theological.
Yes.
So that's why people people have a very hard time taking Aquinas seriously, even though he really is just an extension of Aristotle.
Yes.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's just a.
I think that too, but honestly, I think it's also embarrassment because when they read it, they're like, I don't understand it. So I'm just going to pretend that he's stupid. Yeah. I really do think that's what it is because
they're like, oh, the language is too archaic, or oh, the language is too.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's because you're stupid.
It's like, no, that's the height.
Yes, yeah.
The height of philosophy was 1200, 1300, 1400,
Yes.
But it's funny that a lot of people I know will be like, oh, it's too religious. It's too overtly. It's like, you are analyzing Greek sculpture. You're analyzing a sculpture of Athena. Why do you think they made that?
Yeah.
They didn't just think it was cool art. It's almost more, it's like as overtly theological.
Yeah.
If not more than medieval art.
Yeah.
Like, it's mythology. It's not myth. It's like people when they read Greek mythology, they're reading it as if it was just literature. It's like, no, this is literally this is religious text.
Yes,
of the Greeks.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So
You can't separate it from their metaphysics
at all.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with medieval art, because they did one of the main displays, and this is something that I actually learned from when I was an undergrad, when I was taking an art history course. This professor actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
He wasn't the best, but he wasn't that bad, and he talked about medieval art. And one of the amazing things was how Mary, since and so anybody that knows a little bit of Catholicism knows that the Mary and Jesus in Catholic theology was understood as the new Adam and the new Eve, and so it required the two sexes in order for the fulfillment of the salvation of man to really happen. So Mary was a very important part of the salvation of man. And so the displays of her as being beautiful, when you look at a lot of these medieval paintings, they displayed Mary very strong, very beautiful, very an icon of femininity. And then Jesus was portrayed as the icon of masculinity, because they were man and woman per se. Like, they weren't
that's the point.
Yes, they weren't just a man and a woman, but they were the presentation of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman.
They were a man and woman fully manifest in their nature. Yeah.
And so it was, and so like her investigation into that would have been much more interesting, because there is a sexual component to that. You can't eradicate the erotic from human nature. And so there was something there that she could have explored, but again, it would have completely destroyed her understanding of the relation between the beautiful boy in ancient Greece to the rest of Western civilization, because it didn't follow that trend. Since it rejected paganism, it didn't follow the erotic trend of the beautiful boy anymore.
Yeah.
It followed a more, I would say, a sophisticated trend of understanding the natural law, and understanding human nature as being fundamentally good, as sex being fundamentally good, as many of these corporeal pleasures being a manifestation of God himself. And so
which is what the beautiful boy would become. It's like it's like that culture. It's like it comes to fruition in medieval.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But it rejects much of like the I would say the animalistic aspect of.
She says animal nature like 8,000 times.
Yes, I know. Yes, and the thing about those 1,500 years is that it rejected that because it no longer was this dualism. And so the thing that Albigensianism and Protestantism share with paganism is dualism, is that you have the body and you have the soul, and the body's animal and the soul is spiritual and good. And so with that you have this this dichotomy where sexuality is merely animalistic while the soul is not. And with Catholicism for those 15 years, that just didn't exist anymore. Now you had hylomorphic principles, the idea that there's only one substance, and that one substance is made of these two dependent things, that they're not independent realities. It isn't that the body and soul are independent reality where you just have the animalistic and the spiritual side, is that you have one substance. This one substance is good and is made of dependent qualities. And so you cannot have the erotic without the spiritual and the physical, is that it exists both uniformly and coherently. And so many of the art and many of the writings and understandings of, for example, sexual behavior was both physical as well as spiritual. And then when you went back to Protestants and Albigensianism in the 1500s, you actually go back to the pagan distinction. Now you have this Gnostic dualistic understanding of reality, where now you could just talk about the erotic without the spiritual.
Which just tells you that she doesn't know anything about theology.
Yes.
Because to make that was the thing that irritated me most, is she kept saying that Catholicism was pagan.
Yeah.
It's like, it's markedly like the only non-pagan religious system.
Yes.
That's like qualitatively what it is.
Yep. Yeah. The only other religion that would be almost as anti-pagan really is Mohammedanism. Yeah. It's really the only one. That one, and probably some aspects of Eastern religions, but we don't have to get it. But in Western, it really would be Mohammedanism and Catholicism are really the only ones that are so anti-pagan that its fundamental principles of reality and truth and beauty.
That's why that's. I don't know enough about why, especially the Italian and English Renaissance, happened. I don't know what.
But she did talk about the differences, which I actually took some notes on, because she was right on some of the differences. And like one of the differences, and which I found interesting, was that she claims that in the early part of the British Renaissance, was, I guess, that the spinster woman was the new beautiful boy, was the new archetype of the femininity, but it was quickly overturned when Puritanism kind of took over the entire idea, and then you really see what was that queen's name that they all named that era after?
Elizabeth? No, Victorian.
Yeah, Victorianism, right?
Like Elizabeth and Victoria.
Yeah, with Victorianism kind of took over the British Renaissance period, or at least the later aspect of it.
Yeah.
That kind of completely destroyed it. But yeah, because this is when you start to see the distinctions, because like a lot of the Latin Renaissance was an attempt, and this is the part that historically speaking, to just call the Renaissance is kind of difficult, because I think
it's so long.
It's long, and it depends on the historian.
Yeah.
So some historians say there was actually multiple Renaissance periods. So like when you look at the Baroque period, that was earlier than the Romantic period, that was earlier than the later Renaissance period. You could say that the first Renaissance period started in the 1000s, and then the later one started in the 1600s. And so, but yeah, there was this distinction. And again, this is where the conversation could have got more interesting because, sexuality was completely tied into sacramental activities in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And so the activity of sex in the Catholic Church is a sacramental act. And so it isn't so much so that you're just animalistically behaving, nor is it just like a social acceptance.
It's not completely intellectual.
Right. It's completely, yeah. It is that it is sacramental, meaning that, baptism in the church is a sacrament, First Communion is a sacrament, confession is a sacrament, and then the sacrament that kind of forks either way is holy orders or matrimony. Mm-hmm. And that literally, if you were to marry, like in a Catholic church, even until today, right? If you were to marry somebody in the Catholic church, and then the spouse is unwilling to give you sex, the marriage actually never happened. And so sex is not just like an aspect of life. It is the aspect of the sacrament. Yeah. It's like you consummate this. You literally actualize the sacrament when you put the dick in the pussy. Yeah. This is, this is something that is so interesting about sexuality, especially for that period that she kind of refused to look at, is that sex was exalted not only as something that humans do, but it was exalted as such a good that it requires itself its own sacrament, right? Its own sacred mystery, just as confession and baptism does. This was completely eliminated within Protestantism. Like marriage in Protestantism is not a sacrament. Rather, it is that which sanctifies the disgusting animal behavior of sex. Yeah. And so the way the Protestants look at it is that sex is evil inherently, and that it has to be sanctified by marriage. And so once you're married, now we could allow you to do this disgusting act that I don't want to know, right? Yeah. I don't want to know how you guys do it. It's gross. And this is the way that the Protestants. That's the idea.
Yeah, so sex is a disgusting thing that God has to purify for you.
Yes, that the God. Yeah, exactly. And so the Latin Renaissance, as opposed to the Protestant Renaissance that you found in England, really did differ in that. And I remember growing up, and I found this same thing, like even with my dad told me, because I think me and my brother one time, we were younger, and we asked my parents, like, why don't you guys, because we see it on TV, and we were raised in this country, and so I asked my dad, I was like, why don't you guys celebrate Valentine's Day? And so in the U.S., the Valentine's Day, it's normally that you go there, and then you, like if you're married, you go with your spouse, and then you go to, get dinner or whatever, and then you celebrate Valentine's Day. Yeah. And my dad just crudely, and my mom was sitting next to him, and she was disagreeing with him, right? And so he crudely, he was like, because it's stupid. He was like, Valentine's is supposed to be for the beloved. I was like, yeah, but isn't that your spouse? He was like, no. It's like beloved is when you're like dating, yeah, or whatever, or like she mentions very, very accurately, it was for like for the mistress or whatever. Yeah, it was like that is what the beloved was, and so they even had like holiday celebrations for the beloved, for the fornicators, for whatever. Yeah, in which you celebrated and exalted this this aspect of reality. And then it wasn't really until England and their Renaissance in which they made, since marriage was no longer a sacrament and a duty, they made the spouse into the beloved. And so since now
the spouse sexy.
Yes. Yeah. Because in some way, how are you going to sanctify this? If it is no longer like a duty and a responsibility that you did before God. Yeah. As a sacrament for your own salvation. Yeah. So what is it now? Now it's only reduced down to romance. Yeah. And so you hear many contemporary, like people are saying, you got to just keep the romance alive. You got to keep it going. You got to do whatever, because there's no longer that sacramental duty. It's no longer that, this is what you bound yourself to in your one flesh anymore. Now it is that now you have to in some way placate this other aspect of this, where this is your eternal beloved. This is your forever beloved. You have to be continuously dating your spouse. And so this really happened because of that shift of eliminating the sacrament, and then further trying to make sense of this act in which we do. Because once you eliminate it sacramentally, and then you're going to get counterculture. Why the fuck get married then? Marriage is just a piece of paper at that point. Why do that? If it is not about the salvation of your soul.
That's why no one getting married makes sense.
Yes.
In that framework.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, then why do it? If it is just because you want to be in front of your friends and be like, hey, I'm not going to put my dick in any other pussy anymore. If that is all that's left to it, and then this person becomes your eternal beloved. This person becomes your eternal dating courtship. And I think that puts too much strain, and it also just does not fully acknowledge the reality of the responsibility that one has towards that person. Because it is no longer that now I am responsible for the well-being. I'm responsible that I have to literally die for this other person. Now this person is simply the person that I'm dating, and the point that this person that I'm dating no longer fulfills the pleasures in which I seek. Now I could just abandon them.
Yeah.
And this is what it becomes. And so now it goes back to paganism. Now marriage goes back to what you found with Aristophanes when he talks about like the what do you say? Aristophanes talked about the the souls in which you find each other.
Yeah, I'm not going to remember.
They say in pop culture, soulmates.
Yeah.
It goes back to this Aristophanic kind of soulmate idea. Mm-hmm. And this is what Protestantism leads you to. And so this is what you see in the modern world now, is that now we go back to this idea of soulmates. We no longer go back to sacramental duty. Mm-hmm. Now, again, because Protestantism is more similar to paganism, you get much of that pagan ideas back into its structure and its worldview. That was kind of a long monologue, but
that's fine.
Yeah, but again, that was one thing that I think she could have expanded on more accurately, but that she made that distinction between the Italian, the Latin Renaissance, as opposed to the.
That's the thing, because I really don't take issue with any specific observation she makes.
Yeah,
at all.
But she just doesn't flesh it out.
I think she, as far as women go, she's like kind of a genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially listening to her talk. I do think she's a better orator and a better essayist than she is like a thesis writer.
Yeah.
Like I really, really, really like Paglia speaking. I think she's spectacular and she's fiery and she has this.
I like it when she criticized postmodernists.
Because she knows why to criticize them.
Yes.
She gets it. So it's weird to read something like this.
That's the part that's frustrating.
And it not reflect.
Yes.
And of course, a lot of interviews I've seen have been in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. So she could have changed her mind.
That's 25 years. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's just getting her doctorate in 1990 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And what else do you have in your notes? Because a lot of my stuff is like kind of conclusive because I didn't. Well, I don't want to conclude. We're only an hour in.
Okay.
A lot of my observations are. Let me see. Or I don't know.
My other one was about rape.
Do it.
Okay. So, with Marquis de Sade and everything.
Yeah.
But so the time period of rape as being a part of the sexual personae.
Yeah.
And really the regions I find really interesting because this is part that she doesn't really touch upon, like the inversion of values and everything. That I think that again can be related back to it, because if you were to think that sex is intrinsically gross and animalistic, that the activity itself can never really be viewed as a good. It could only be viewed as something that is permissive.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it is only an activity that is permissive but never good, the exploration of rape will be I think a facet that people are just going to get into, right? Mm-hmm. Because then if you're just going to think to yourself, okay, I am gross, I am disgusting, I want to do this thing, why not then do it the most effective way, where I could just hold the woman down that is much more fragile than I am and just stick my dick in her. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, again, I think this goes back to this kind of inversion, this separation that you have with those 1,500 years that she refuses to talk about, to what happened in the later Renaissance period, where rape just became a facet of sexuality, and one that somebody can explore. And yeah,
You're not gonna eat fucking cake?
fine.
What do you mean fine?
Let me cut it.
Amy, I had to convince Jeremy to eat the cake. No, I need more than that. That can be yours. What are you talking about? God.
Fine.
You just don't want any of it then, huh? Okay. Look, then take the fucking cake, Grant. He's cake raping me. Look at that, Amanda. Here's my
Cake rape.
2/5 of a pound of cake. Do you want some, Amanda? You do? I can't see if you're not here. You have to be way. I know you're Alaska native, but you really have to be more expressive than that. Or I won't understand. Oh, can I tell you an anecdote? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've told you before. This will be a nice little break. We have a cake break and then go back and then.
Yeah.
This is a lot. This is cake. So this is for Amanda mainly. When I was in elementary school, there was a woman. You have to finish that because we have one more gin and tonic worth of quinine water. Mm-hmm. We had a substitute teacher when I was in elementary school. She was native. Based on her weight and the shape of her face, she must have been a Nupiaq. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But apparently,
Aren't there Nupiaqs Eskimos?
they're like Barrow, like the most northern. So Amanda, can you
Natives get mad if you call them native. They're Eskimos.
Okay, so Amanda, can I try something? So we got this, right? So this is my Alaska map for the viewers. If you put your hand like this, it's Alaska. So we have a Nupiaq up here, Yupik down here, right? And then we have Athabaskan in the middle, Tlingit down here. What's right here? Anchorage, white people. we're gonna be right there. There's like what 29 tribes or something, and I know like 4 large groups because I don't care. I don't care at all. Out here, there's like 10 people.
Right. Yeah.
What do you mean tribes? It's like you in a hut with your dog. Anyway, so we had this substitute teacher when I was in elementary school, and I was not involved. I didn't know it was going to happen, but my teacher, my 5th grade teacher, English teacher, because I was in the immersion program, so was my Spanish, the Peruvian man who could hold himself up perpendicular on a pole at 55 years old. He ate almonds and raw eggs for lunch. This woman, she stopped class to castigate us because she said, so it was at least 20, like 15, 20 years ago. I don't know how long it was, but she gets up in front of the class and she's like, okay, so I have gotten some complaints and I just want you all to know that Mrs. whatever her name was, she doesn't talk slow because she thinks you're stupid. She just talks slowly because she's an Alaska native. And apparently a huge number of kids in the class had complained because they thought the substitute teacher was talking to them like they were stupid. Like there's a bunch of like 9-year-olds who feel patronized by the native lady.
Especially for like in a Spanish immersion class.
Well, yeah, it was English, but it's
yeah.
the English side or whatever. But
Yeah, but I mean,
we're like,
Spanish
hey,
people
just
speak so
I
quickly.
know, he's Peruvian.
Yeah.
Go, come on, we gotta move on.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna talk about the comma. What is a comma? So, the word and, or but, or Not because you don't use a comma with because. That's my impression of it. Amanda's Alaskan native, so I'm allowed to do this in her presence. Wouldn't notice that the audio wasn't coming through my monitors anymore. So I don't know if the moment where we figured out the overhead light is not just if it looks better. That's why we figured out that we had a light on above us. So you had a thing to say about your hot daughter snatching the harmonica away from
it's just that there really is a known correlation between hot chicks and how crazy they are. And
I'm just gonna make let's not give context. There's like 10 minutes of anecdote the audience doesn't get to hear.
And so it's like when you have your own kid that's that way, because and this is just like not even subjectively speaking. I get told so often when people see me with my daughters how pretty they are, and so they're all the girls are like extremely pretty, but then there's one that has like this, like I guess more sexual, hotness about her. That
you're not saying you find your daughter sexually appealing.
No. But
we do have to say that.
Yes, but
You're
you
just
could
saying that
recognize.
Yes. One of your daughters is going to be way more difficult later in life.
Yes, yeah.
As far as men go.
Yeah. And so, but she's also the craziest one. It's like she's just batshit crazy.
She's just starts insulting me, and I'm like, I just not
They're
interested.
just bitches. They're the ones that like key your car. They're the ones that are just like.
Why do you not have hair? That's not the dig. I don't care about that. And you're like, stop.
I know.
And she just goes at me, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? What's your problem?
She's too hot. That's her problem.
She's too hot for her own good.
No, yeah, like when I was so the other day when was it just yesterday? Yeah, it was just yesterday when I was watching Leo and the Professional with her. It was like she identified with Natalie Portman so much, and then when I saw them together, I'm like, holy shit! There's so much similarities. How crazy she is, like that part where in that movie where she goes to that person in the hotel and she'd be like, he's not my father, he's my lover. Like she just like kind of maniacally laughed. She was like, like she kind of completely understood that.
How insane that would be to say.
Yes, I was saying, and that she probably would do the same. And so there's this thing about the measurement of the hotness. Everybody knows like the hot matrix scale with crazy women. But to see it with your own child manifesting, and you're trying to do everything possible to curb that, but you realize there's nothing stopping it. She is just hot. She's got to be crazy. She's a bitch. She knows how to get under people's skin, and then at the same time, because she is so hot, everybody wants to be around her, no matter how much of a bitch she is to them.
I don't want to be around her.
I know you don't, yes, but also you're gay.
Sam.
Yes,
I do not find women attractive.
There's always that, but even other women just want to be around her. Like other girls, right? They just want, she's a cheerleader. Or she's fucking.
So it's the archetype of the horrible popular girl. That
yeah, she really is.
With.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I homeschool her. I was like, I don't want you to bully others. I think some parents
would.
I know some parents like homeschool the kids to shelter them. It's like, no. I want to shelter the world from you because you would be such a monster to everybody.
But then you want to shelter your weird son.
Yes, yes,
It's
of
a
course.
different
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
It's too impressionable.
He's much more easily like enculturated. Like when he was watching Leon, he was more like the basic American response, like, oh, why is she doing that? Well, Monica was like, yeah,
I get it.
I get it. I would do the same. But yeah. But anyways, let's go back to this.
We lost her momentum with the recording cutting off.
Yeah.
I had my whole anecdote about native people. Lost to time.
Yes.
Anyway. Should we do an interlude?
Probably for the better. What?
Should we do like an interlude or something where it cuts off? Like go and strip the audio off that video of the guy doing Our Father in Aramaic.
And then just cut back. show
It's like,
Pope Francis's face like weeping.
it's the whole like 5-minute clip. Should I do that?
That would be funny. Yeah, we could. Yeah, because it'll be good on video too. Not for 5 minutes, but just like a split, like a few seconds. They'll be like, what
The Our Father. Anyway. Okay, so what else do we have to say about sexual? You have a whole thing.
Yeah, kind of.
You have way more bullet points than I do. Mine
I
are more
guess,
fleshed out and fewer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is pretty much what we already talked about, though.
Should we just bullshit for the rest of the episode? Should we just conclude our conversation about sexual persona?
Yeah. I want to know what you have in your...
So, I'm trying to think of what I expected going to sexual persona is different than what I got.
Yeah.
Because I am extremely familiar with the first section because I've read it halfway through so many times. I think that what I expected from sexual personae, unrightly, was she says a lot about like how she contrasts male sexuality and experience with female sexuality and experience, or female, sexuality experience. In that, like she makes the point about how there's an archetypal symbolism in the fact that women cannot see their genitalia and men can. Mm-hmm. You know, and that the female is something to be discovered, and that the masculine is a honing instrument. There's like a literally, I don't remember. I don't think she said it in this one. I think she says it in Vamps and Tramps, where like there's literally something about how men urinate in a stream that goes outside of the body in a direction and can be directed. Just even to that level, there's something about how men fixate and women are to be conquered. But then in the end, men are actually the ones sacrificing themselves, and women are the one that capture the male. Mm-hmm. And like there's a lot of that I think is extremely correct. I mean, although like kind of like maybe overly poetic and like to its own fault, and like I don't know, but like the first section is awesome. Mm-hmm. Like that first chapter is just like it talks about like female menstruation and about how women are incapable and will never be able to. I'm trying to remember what the line is in the book. It's much later, but it says there are no female Mozarts because there are no female Jack the Rippers. Right, and like that's a good line. That's a good observation. It's that there are no female geniuses because there are also no female imbeciles. Yeah, they're just that's a male thing. Yeah, and that she women occupy this like really realistic and normal and grounded like center of the IQ spectrum. Yeah. Like they're just. Women are generally much more intuitive and realistic about just how they live their day-to-day lives. They're much more stable. They're much more like, and men are either like really, really stupid or like geniuses to their own fault. Yes. And I think that's like really, really good, especially in response to the feminist movement that she was kind of contrasting herself against, and like why like people like Judith Butler or something would hate her. Yes. Yeah. Like because she very, very loudly distinguishes the sexes from one another, and they have different roles, but then that's kind of where it ends, and then from then on is just examples of that. Yes, yeah. And I would really like to have I didn't necessarily, so what I'm talking about is like what I expected was like an investigation of that and what it means about the structure of reality and our relationship with it. And more, it's just examples through art of the way that those archetypes have manifest possibly in artists that made art. Yeah. I don't know if you felt kind of the same way. Because like you read that first, especially the first and second chapter, like when she's covering the Greeks and that first chapter and then her time with the Greeks. Yeah. Was really good. and then she just kind of like flaccidly jumps to the Renaissance and just kind of like impose, like, because the other thing is, like, I don't necessarily know if what's going on is she is projecting her own. Because I'm trying to formulate this. Would you say that it's fair to assume that her unspoken thesis might be that all great art is a result of sexual confusion or struggle with the archetypes?
I don't know. I think that's saying more than what she would say.
I know, but that's kind of. Could you say that I could, reading it as a rational person, derive that?
Yeah.
Like when she is imparting to all of these people sexual confusion, she's like, obviously Oscar Wilde is a good example of someone who's sexually confused because he literally, there was literally a public trial of his defense of his own homosexual behavior or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you're like reading Emily Dickinson and she's imparting all of this like internal archetypal sexual struggle to Emily Dickinson, it's like, I don't know how much of that is her projecting her own struggle with that kind of stuff onto the artist.
Yeah. Which I think
how do you take Michelangelo and project onto Michelangelo like sexual confusion?
Right, exactly.
Like you just have the work.
Yes, yeah. No, yeah, I agree. And I think that's why even my starting notes was that. I was like, she makes these really bold claims about Leonardo and Michelangelo being gay or homosexual and confused sexually, but never really backs that up with anything.
But because this is the same criticism you had with Foucault, is that the arguments make sense within the framework of the work.
Yes.
All of this makes sense within the framework of sexual personae.
Yeah.
But I don't know how sexual personae is supposed to speak to anything beyond itself. Yeah. And because it's a doctoral thesis, I don't know. I can't pretend to know what she was thinking when she wrote it. Because when I listen to her, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I get a little bit more of a well-rounded impression of her as a thinker, as a speaker and a writer.
Yes.
Just this, I don't know if this was just a hurdle to jump. I can't assume what was going on.
No, yeah. But we can make judgment on what is said.
Yes.
Like, we can't know her intentions, but we can know what is said, at least. And I think what is said...
And based on this, it's very half-baked.
Yes. In the end. And maybe it was to please her advisor who... who was grading her all the shit. So yeah, fine, that could be the case, but it nevertheless does not make the work any more warranted or less warranted. It's just
because I don't know if it was warranted.
Yeah.
I think that as a little essay, the first chapter would have been great.
Yeah. Yeah, she's
a very, very good essayist.
Yeah.
In like short spurts.
Right.
Because I really sense from it that she is... Her feminine intuition is of her time period unrivaled.
Yeah.
Especially when she speaks and stuff, and the way, just the little details that she intuits from her surroundings about the way that the social structure operates at a different at a given time. Are her observations are really, really good.
Yeah.
But she's not a metaphysician.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what this work tries to... It tries
to explain what it can't explain. And because
it doesn't even try.
I really do think that reading many postmodernists or contemporaryists, they really do think that is an explanation in itself. So like one writing this reminds me of is Daston and Gelson. And in their book called Aesthetics, they go through like the alterations of how within the scientific method things were presented in such a different way. But in the end, they never really say anything because it's just giving you historical, I guess, happenings of the way things display themselves in reality, but it never gives you why it displayed itself in that way. And they think that just giving you the material correlations is sufficient to explain the why, and it's just not. All that you have shown me there is that you have very meticulously observed many works of art, and how they were produced, but never really went deeper into why would an artist do this? Why would it become the trendy thing right now to present an art with the sexual personae being in this fashion? Why would it be the rapist? Why would it be the beautiful boy? Why would it be, the puritanical spinster or whatever? Yeah, and I think a large part of it is because it doesn't want to explore anything with meaning. It only wants to explore anything that has correlative processes, and so because of that, it lacks in its explanation. It is what it is. It's like, like I said earlier, it's like if I want to hire a researcher, she might be someone good for that. Just be like, hey, I need information on this. Could you go get it for me? But then you as a thinker should be one that can cohesively make an argument of why this would be the case. Like, what is the final causal relations and what is the formal reality of it? And she doesn't do that.
Well, it was very odd. Or it wasn't odd, but it was very... One of my, I guess, turnarounds was, like I said, it's kind of a rite of passage. Because, I mean, it's a rite of passage. And like, wow, you can read. Like, you... Right, yeah. You can really... You really, really can slog through something long. Like, literally, the book is this thick.
Yes,
like, it's as an audiobook, it's 35 hours.
Yes, yeah.
Of nonstop talking. But I don't think I would recommend it to anyone as like a reading. I just because she's extremely good at description. But I don't think that I would be like, just read fiction. Just read the things she's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, if you're really, really that interested in Dickinson, just read Emily Dickinson.
Yes.
Just read Wordsworth. Just read Coleridge. Just read Oscar Wilde. Just read them. Just get out of them whatever you're going to get. Like, whatever. But it just,
But since her explanation is undirected, your interpretation will be just as undirected. Yeah. Not yours in particular, but just someone reading
could
them.
be.
Yeah,
would likely be just as...
So it really doesn't matter in the end. It's like, yeah, so what? And that's the issue with writings like this. Is like, in the end, so what? What are you telling me? Are you going to tell me anything or no? And I think many academics, especially since the 1960s all the way through now, even if they themselves are not cowards and timid people, their writings by their nature are cowardice writings. It's like, just make the claim. You could be wrong, fine. But if you don't want to make an actual strong claim of reality, then just don't write. And that's the issue that I have with
I really think she'd be a spectacular novelist.
Yeah, she would.
She would write it's the thing with... So this is my problem with Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
Ayn Rand's books are great. Like her novels.
Are they? Yeah.
Like you wouldn't. I mean, obviously you really don't get anything out of fiction, and that's fine.
Yeah, I know.
There's an art form, whatever. But like The Fountainhead is great.
Yeah. It's
very didactic, so you can pretty easily, like the philosophy of it is very face value, and then it's very individualistic. That you determine your worth as a human being. You create your own truth. Like, it's just whatever. But like it's a novel, so it's good. And like, I really think that Paglia would be a spectacular novel. And I said she's a good essayist. I really like her essays when they're about a current event or a specific thing.
Yeah.
But when like this was not. I think this is my least favorite work of hers.
Yeah.
Which is really a shocking flip to me, because I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Like, I really like Camille Paglia a lot.
Yeah.
I think, have you seen pictures of her doing her, have you seen her like, I don't know if they're press photos, but there's like one really funny picture of her where she always does this pose where she's like this.
Yeah.
And she has like a switchblade and she's like in front of urinals. And you're like, that's like really cool. It's like she's just like badass and cool and well dressed and funny and like she pisses all the like third wave feminists off and like she obviously innately understands the sexual difference between man and woman and how they complement each other, and that's all great. And like she has I don't remember when she's many times she's given the spiel where she grew up Italian, so there's the big, I mean Italian American, but whatever. But there's like you have a bunch of people over and like all of the men are outside working on a car while all the women are in the kitchen. And that's fine, and that men and women occupy different hierarchies is fine because they're men and women and they just don't exist in the same world. Their social circles are totally different. And the fact that she likes that and extols that is like deeply correct. And like that's great. I think it's this specific work I just don't understand why it was written. I don't.
And she could make the proper propositions of that that's the way it should be, but the issue is that
why?
You can't question her further. So you could just leave it at that.
But that's a very feminine thing. It's like no, this is the way it should be.
So okay, good.
They don't need questioning. And you ought not question a woman, Don't question a woman, and the woman knows what's right. Isn't that right, Amanda? She wasn't listening. I said that women are always right because they just intuit it. Anyway, she's not going to get it. Her face didn't react at all. We're not even to an hour and a half, so we're going to have to flush. We got another hour to go.
Okay, yeah.
But
I don't know. Like I don't know if there's any more commentary that you could have on it, but that seems to be, at least for me, everything that I said.
Let me.
My biggest gripes with a lot of things as well as what and I really do think a large part of that it's the fact that she skipped 1,500 years of history.
It's just very annoying. It's like don't pretend like you're doing an objective analysis of the history of Western art. Like what is it? Giotto? Giotto is a really influential medieval Italian painter, and he did a lot of those like a lot of Picasso's work even like harkens back to like dozens of characters doing something in the same scene.
Oh, right,
He just did a lot of like pictures of saints and stuff. I really do think it's because there's something unfashionable and not chic about seriously considering Christian art.
And so they don't even want to bother to look at it.
But you look at Greek stuff, which is just as theological, not as coherently, but it's very annoying.
Yes. But you could talk about the beautiful boy, and so it makes it more.
So, what's your history with the beautiful boy? Do you have you liked the phrase?
I just think it's kind of funny.
Beautiful boy.
Yeah, the beautiful boy. It's just kind of funny, but I think
because that's something that's like I did not read it, but I really liked her commentary on Death in Venice. I think it's really really good because you Amanda's read it.
Yeah,
Amanda. You've read Death in Venice? Did you read it? Yeah. It's good. Yeah. It's Fountainhead is really good. Yeah. But once Ayn Rand starts doing like the virtue of selfishness and like writing metaphysics, it's like doesn't make it. What was that?
Once she gets too overt, yes,
yeah, it's like just be a novelist.
Was very highly attractive, being that strong and sensual, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like the Perfume Nationalist did an episode on it. It's just like you can smell it. It's so good. Like it's
the way it's written.
It's extremely good. I mean, it's really really long winded. But what was the thing I was talking about before I asked you if you'd read?
Death in Venice.
Oh, Death in Venice. When she talks about
the beautiful boy.
Yeah, the beautiful boy. Yeah. It's like being a sodomite. There is something that goes unrecognized in the admiration of the masculine, especially youthful masculinity, precedes sexual desire, and she inherently gets that.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing in Death in Venice was ever sexual, and there was nothing in it to convince you that his fixation was sexual. He was just fixated. He was just fixated on the beauty of youth.
Yeah.
And like I really liked her commentary on that because she gets it.
Yeah.
She understands it. And because I understand it, I can go therefore rationalize it. But she doesn't do anything
to develop it at all.
No.
Yeah.
Because you enjoy women, and that's fine. But there's something about beautiful young men that does something for me that isn't necessarily sexual, that it just doesn't do for you. Because you're just not inclined in that way. Yeah. And like hearing her talk about it was like kind of cool. Yeah. Because you're not turned on by young men, but there's just like a fixation and like encapsulation by youthful masculinity. It's just like almost intimidating and like terrifying. Yeah. I don't know. It was I enjoyed hearing her talk about it. But
no, I did too. I mean, I think it's interesting. And I think it's false to say that I don't get it. I mean, I do get it. I think anybody can
maybe you
really,
don't empathize with it. It's a different thing.
Right, yeah. But I think anybody can really comprehend what is meant by that. Because there, even just socially, there is a certain, I don't know if exaltation would be the right word, but at least there's a certain caring that one has for the young man that is not the same that you have for the young woman. Yeah. And I think it is different, and you see that, and I think a lot of it is because it's a recognition of unrealized potentiality, and you know that it's going to be realized, or at least that it can be realized, and the significance of the young man is that we mature much slower, and maturing much slower, everything about us, like our bones fuse later than women do. The development of muscles comes a little bit later. And so when you see that point of the boy not yet fully a man, and yet has the potential to be one, I think there's just a recognition of something beautiful there that is neither just masculine or feminine, but there is a blending of the two that they only represent, because like a young lady is only a young lady. Like when you see Natalie Portman in Leon the Professional, she's a beautiful young lady. When you see a young boy, it's not the same. It isn't as if, I don't know how to explain it. There is this sense that you are just drawn to the manifestation of that beautiful boy that I think she explains quite well, but probably you're right that I think you could empathize it better than I do. But I think many people kind of recognize it, even when you see an extremely butch guy having a son, and when they're in that age, when they're like 12, 13, 14 years old, it's like that man just
there's a perfect aesthetic manifestation in them.
Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to think of what would be aesthetically manifest, but it's like in the beautiful boy is the perfect manifestation of innocence in a way, because
and almost androgyny, really.
Well, androgyny and innocence, I would say, because a girl never doesn't intuit what's going on.
No.
Young girls know how the world works better than young men do.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
That way younger than 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
you talk to a 6-year-old girl, and there's something that a young child, a female, intuits that a man doesn't until he's much, 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 much older. Yeah. Like, well into his life that a man doesn't know. We've talked about it before. Because, people say that women mature faster than men. It's like a 10-year-old girl is more mature than many 30-year-old men. Like it's a way slower process.
It is. Yeah.
So when you see a 12, 13, 15-year-old boy, and they're at a, they're not at peak fitness, but there's a certain archetype of physical constitution manifest in them. They are at their most enthusiastic, but they're least sane.
Yeah,
And there's because what a man's intuition is to protect the weak.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see a 14-year-old boy,
Mm-hmm.
that's the weakest person that exists, essentially.
Right,
Like not necessarily, maybe mentally, maybe not physically,
Yeah.
but there's something about the archetype of the beautiful
Mm-hmm.
boy that is the most like precious and to protect.
Yeah, there's something precious about it. Yeah.
Because the potential is the greatest, but also
Yes.
they're the most vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's the age at which men are either made or destroyed, essentially,
Yes. Yeah.
most of the time.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think Paglia's fixation in the book on that is correct. I think the fixation is correct.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't think she could tell you why that fixation
Right,
is
yes.
correct.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be super contragentilis about this, but like it is a woman that wrote it. So like we can't be super upset
Yeah.
because we have at length, especially in early episodes, discussed the distinction between the male intellect and the female intuition. I just don't think that most women in their intuition are prepared to explain at length and in detail that which the male intellect can explain, but they're also much more readily able to perceive it than men are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this book is a good example of a woman attempting to operate in the male sphere and just not doing it the same.
Yeah.
Because I think I think a lot of,
Yeah.
I don't know about now, but I think a lot of Paglia's earlier work and her fixation on the masculine and the fact that men, she multiple times she says that men build everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
All Western civilization was built by men,
Mm-hmm.
which it was. I mean, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that there's a little bit of a bitterness in her tone because I think she's really, really, really upset that she's not a man.
You think so? Yeah.
I think Paglia is upset that she's not a man.
Yeah.
I do know that she's celibate.
Mm-hmm.
She does not partake of any kind of sexual activity at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's called herself a lesbian. She only
Yeah.
has ever had any kind of experience with women, I think.
Okay.
Or that's kind of her thing, is that she's a celibate lesbian or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know exactly. But it's like there's a special bitterness she holds towards the fact that she's not a man.
Yes.
That I sense
Yeah.
as a man who loves men. Like I just kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
this is why lesbians irritate me so much. You're just mad you don't have a penis. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the war between gays and lesbians, is that gay men. So what's the gripe? This is how I've described it, is that gay men would say that lesbians, especially butch lesbians, are way too serious. Can't take a joke. And butch lesbians and lesbians to a lesser extent would say that gay men, everything is a joke. So everything is a joke to gay men, and lesbians don't know how to take a joke.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a disconnect between the two, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially sexually, like they're just worlds that don't. So what like would lead a man to be regularly sodomous in his lifestyle would be an imbalance in his concern for physical pleasure, I would say. Is that he just wants to partake of physical pleasure.
Yeah.
And men know how to give like better blowjobs than women do. It's just true. It's just a thing. Because men know what men want better than women do. And that's just true. That is true. Men understand.
I really don't know.
I understand. No, I'm just,
Yeah.
and I really wouldn't super know, but
Yeah.
it makes sense that men would understand male pleasure better than women do. Like this because they're men.
Yeah.
Yes. And so
I don't know. I don't know. I have no opinion on that because I.
But is that not easy to rationalize, that men would understand male pleasure better than women do?
No.
Why?
Say the same thing, though.
What?
I hear women say the same thing. That's the same argument.
Oh, women understand like female.
I just don't think that's true.
Do you think it's true that women understand
I
female
think
pleasure?
I understand the female pleasure more
Don't
than
give
a
me
woman
the
does.
joke face. What?
I think I understand the female pleasure more than a female does.
Interesting. Okay. No, so that's just generally like
Yeah.
I just think like most men who have experienced both would say that men give better blowjobs than women do, essentially. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, neither would I.
But anyway,
Yes,
I guess
yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't. What was I saying?
I don't know.
I'm intoxicated enough to know.
Blowjob.
This is a weird detail to end on and not remember what my point was.
Because I think many girls are like, ooh, I wouldn't like that. But I think a guy who knows what a woman wants would be able to give it to her that. Or she would think that she wouldn't like it. I think it could be the same thing the other way around.
Yeah.
Like a guy might be like, I wouldn't like that, but I think a woman would know what to do to a guy to make him like come faster or whatever. And be like, I didn't think that would happen. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
So I don't remember what my point was. So
Yeah,
I don't know where to
yeah.
go from. I don't know what my springboard was.
Yeah. The beautiful boy. That's what we're talking about.
Beautiful boy. I love beautiful boys. Not sexually. I'm not
Yeah.
partaking of beautiful boys.
No, even like random instances where we go back to the beautiful boy. The times that I would just cry, for example, it happened to me when I cut my my son's hair.
No.
And then I was just like wiping the hair off of his shoulders. And for some reason I started to weep. And there was just something about it. It was just like,
Did he go like, what are you doing?
no, he didn't notice, you know. I tried to hold it in and everything. But, you know, it's like, then I patted him on the shoulders and just like, you know, you're becoming a man. That's all I really said. And there was just something so magnificent about just seeing the shoulders of a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something.
Yeah.
It's like, it's especially in your case, very obviously not sexual.
No, it isn't. Yeah, yes.
You know, but
it isn't. Yeah.
there's something about like imagine being a sculptor and walking up to an unsculpted block of marble, and
Yeah.
you're just like, just the weight that would have.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you mean the especially in your case, like the cutting of hair
Yeah.
is especially archetypal.
Yeah.
I mean, even bit like Samson and stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's this is making me think of a film. It's, what is it called? I remember the Korean title is Miryang, but Secret Sunshine is what it is in English. I'll just tell you the plot for so a woman, her husband dies, and she moves back to his hometown with her son, and then she's like a piano teacher or something, and she just moves back to his town because, you know, she's grieving, and she has her own way of dealing with that, and she goes to his hometown to be closer to him and also to his ancestry and stuff, you know. It's like it's very archetypal.
Yeah.
And her son disappears, and she's distraught, and then her son winds up dead in a river days later, and she finds her son dead, and then she's grieving and has her own, she just goes insane, and there's a man who kind of, what's the word, like becomes her man, or he takes it upon himself to be her protector and stuff, and it's about her going through her own like psychosis and stuff regarding her husband dies, and then her son is kidnapped and murdered, and like but she goes to an insane asylum, and then he gets her out, and then the first thing they do when she gets out is in her little house courtyard they cut her hair, and then the last shot is her hair on the ground blowing away in the wind, and then the movie ends. I should send it to you. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But there's something about hair cutting that is extremely,
Oh yeah, I agree.
that's why so to tell you my thing, so my father always had buzzed hair. He has just he shaved his head. Like down to shiny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't think it works for me as well. I think that I have to, the tiny little bit of stubble works better for me. I don't think I'm as hard edged as it would take to like totally shave it shiny. I don't, maybe later in life or something when I'm more successful. It's a little bit of a statement to make when you're shaving your head. But it was the November after my father died. I was losing my hair and everything, and I just had this weird moment where I was like, I have to buzz my hair off. So I can't. I just like give me like wet. I took my mustache, like my beard trimmer thing, and I just like buzzed all of my hair off, and then I just like cried.
Oh, really? I remember when you sent me the picture the first time you.
Yeah, I sent it to my mom, and she was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like this weird cathartic. There's something about hair cutting,
Yeah.
like cutting hair off.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a reason it's present in the Bible itself. That like,
Right, yeah.
there's something about, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I really don't either, yeah.
But that like hearing you have that experience with cutting your son's hair like doesn't shock me.
Yes.
At
Yeah, I
all.
think part of it was the hair. I mean, he does have just amazing hair.
Yeah.
But I think the other part is just that you just get closer to someone who was a baby, and now it's like, I don't know, they're just something so profound by seeing the neck, seeing like that muscle that connects right here, and it's like you're developing. You know, you're not there yet, but they're just the state of being that you are right now is so beautiful that you just kind of want to rejoice in it a little bit, and there's something just amazing about it, and it's.
I really think that's why my father really loved being a middle school teacher.
Was it? Yeah, yeah.
Because his commentary on he taught sixth grade for the vast majority of his teaching career.
Yeah.
And then he went to 8th grade and he hated it.
Yeah.
And then he went back to 6th grade.
Oh, okay.
And there was something about the 11 and 12-year-olds where they were developing, and they were kind of at the point where they started developing their like individual intellects.
Yeah.
But they weren't poisoned against the system yet, so you just got to like bask in their individual potentials. But they still thought he was super cool. But then when he went to teach 8th grade, everybody was poisoned against the system.
Right.
And everyone hated their teachers and stuff, and everybody was difficult. But so he's like, I'm going to go back to 6th grade because they're only 2 years younger.
Yeah.
And they're still archetypes of potential, and they're not bitter yet.
Yeah. They're extremely annoying at that age, but they're just, But I think this one is
once your son's like, hey, I'm gonna read Das Kapital, you're like, like, oh no.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I've heard about this guy, and you're like, stop. Have you heard of this Dawkins guy?
Yeah. The Richard.
All right, you don't get internet for the rest of your life.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's everything's gonna come crashing, but it's for the time being, it's interesting.
It's funny. He gravitates towards me because I'm between ages. Well, I'm closer to your. I'm closer to your age than he is.
He's actually just he gravitates to a lot of guests.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he's just very open. Just with stuff like
Except for the mob boss really likes me, but
yeah.
she literally took my knees out. I was walking and I almost went down. I was like, "What just happened?" And she's like back there, like, with her pumpkin.
Which? Oh.
I'm like walking past Amy into the little dining spot, and then like something just like takes my knees out, and I almost go to the ground. I'm like, "What the fuck was that?" And I turn around, she's kneeling with her pumpkin. She's like. I'm like, what was that? I was like, Amy, did you see that? And she's like, no. And I was like, I almost got killed.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's just, man. It's like, it goes for my knees.
All right. What else should we talk about? How far are we in?
Hour 48.
Oh, okay.
Another 30 minutes, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything else to say about sexual personae. Here, read that first paragraph. Wait, let me. Wait. Just read paragraph 3 and tell me as a teacher how you'd grade just that. Wow, you do read slow. It's so silent.
I don't know, you're mostly kind of like asking the question. You're not really quite sure whether she's actually understanding it or not.
Yeah.
But,
I just thought it was funny. It was like I just wrote this whole thing out.
yeah.
And I was like, I think Jeremy would like this.
Yeah.
I should write more.
Yeah.
I think I have a linguistic talent for writing that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, yeah.
Even that one piece was the piece I wrote about original sin a while ago. I read it again and I was like, this is horrible. But like at the same time, it's like written well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
It takes so much time to write stuff, though.
It does.
It's essentially all you can be doing.
Yes, unfortunately. I think a lot of times, at least, this is like something that I told a lot of my other friends who were in the school with me and everything. And again, the ones who listened to me succeeded, and the ones who didn't failed out. I just told them, I was like, one thing about writing is that the first thing that you write, you really should just discard, because it's gonna be shit.
Yeah.
You could write about 15 pages, and then you should just put it down, just walk away, come back a month later and read it. And if you think, wow, this is awesome, then you're doing it wrong. Yeah. Because you should read it and be like, wow, this is shitty. And then you should start revising it. And what ends up happening is that you just rewrite the whole thing again. And it should go through that process of you writing, rereading it, giving it to other people too, and be like, hey, what do you think of it? I'm listening to their criticism and being thick-skinned. I think too many people are thin-skinned about it. Yeah. And then the more that you end up doing that, you realize that you could construct a pretty decent argument.
So when did I write that? It was like June 2020 or something?
Yeah, it's been a while ago now, yeah.
It was like a year and a half. But still, still, like, I just remember reading it. I was like, I get why I would be intrigued by.
Yes, yeah.
So what was my argument? Essentially, and I think that intuitively, especially coming from like a Protestant background, it's like a good observation that so let's say God is perfect and that God makes no mistakes. So that being the case, why would God's creation of Adam and Eve essentially betray him, betray being?
Yeah.
If God makes no mistakes, that must have been intentional. And I think that's a good distinction. I mean, it's very Protestant to think of that. But still, I just was like, I remember reading it, I'm like, oh, little grand.
Developing. Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I get the mechanics of why that wouldn't be the case. But like at the same time, it's just like, it was.
But I think it's good to do that. I mean, you write things down and you begin to think about it, and then you should explore issues with it.
What was that? Sound like a chair squeaking on the floor.
I thought that was like crying for a second.
Baby Grant. So innocent.
It's so cute. But yeah.
But it is crazy to think about like how far. Like I really have come to fruition doing this little project.
Yes. Yeah.
Contradicting.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I don't know if that was just necessarily something that needed to happen, or like I just have the potential for it, or like
and it's really like a nonstop growth. Oh, yeah. It's interesting because when you do have a solid foundation. So many things start becoming obvious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then when that starts happening, it's like you could begin to even read things that in the past were significant to you and realize, well, they're it's actually not that good. And that's because now you have a better foundation of understanding.
You know what's crazy?
Yeah.
I went through To Live, that book by Yu Hua that I've said, there's this like that actually was more significant to me in the last year than it was the
Yeah.
first time I read it.
I was about to say that.
I have a copy of that if you want it.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay, yeah.
it's like that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's fiction,
Yeah.
but like you have films that you like that are fiction.
Yeah,
That you enjoy.
I don't
I
dislike
understand.
fiction. I like
Most
yeah.
fiction does nothing for you because it's so laborious.
Yes,
It's
just reading. is
One second.
laborious, yeah.
Let's see the app. Oh my god, I almost took the Ferrero Rocher off the. Let me. So can we rant about Audible for a second? How sucky Audible is.
Yes, yeah.
So, you hate Audible as much as.
Yeah, it's stupid.
So what is it? You pay $16 a month
yeah.
to download one book a month,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. Yours supports cash
2
transactions.
books. Yeah, 2 books a
Mine-
month.
So
yeah.
so here's my Audible app. So I get one book a month, and tell me a book, anything.
Oh.
Let's say Aquinas. What do they have by? Ooh, can you imagine reading Aquinas audiobook? So Summa Theologica Part 1,
Yeah.
and then I go here, and what it says is sample now. I can sample it, or you can get this title for 1 credit.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
This app doesn't support cash purchases, so I can't just like buy it.
Yeah.
Like if we were going to cover something and you're like, oh, it's this thing. And I'm like, $15, whatever.
Yeah.
It's for it's for the show, whatever. I can just pay that and then just listen to it. It doesn't even let you buy stuff.
Yeah, mine does, I think. Let me see if I do Summa.
So search it.
Yeah.
Summa Theologica.
Yeah.
It's to live on Audible. Oh, it is. Oh my
See, I could do it then.
To live.
Yeah.
It's literally my favorite thing I've ever read.
Really? Okay.
I literally openly wept in a laundromat. I had to go and like hide behind.
Primas pars.
Oh, it's him and his freaking little. This is literally the perfect cover art. And I have a copy in the back of my car. I need to read it again. It's literally.
I can't get this book. I can't get the Summa.
Yeah, it just says like add to wish list. And it's
Yeah.
like you get 2 credits a month?
Yeah.
I get 1 for some. I don't understand. But
Does not support.
it doesn't let you buy anything.
Because you have to go to actually the website. You can't
Amazon?
purchase it through the app.
Amazon?
Yep, you have to go to Amazon.
So if I go like this and I go Amazon,
And you log in, then you
To
can
live.
do it.
it's so beautiful. It's so good. It's so good. Everybody who's listening, go read. So audiobook. And then 1 credit per month plus catalog, podcasts, and it doesn't let you buy it. You pay $16 a month on Audible to download 1 book a month.
Yeah.
Let's say this book is 35 hours long. Like I can comprehend really, really easily at double speed.
Yes.
That's 17 hours. You get 17 hours a month.
Yeah.
That's not even an hour a day.
Yes.
What are you going to listen to a book for 30 minutes a day and remember what it says? But the end, what I was going to say is the other app I have is Scribd. It's
which I'm going to use now because you said you could get.
yeah, you can just get whatever. Hua. If I just sorry. It says Tu Hua. I turned off autocorrect because it messed me up too many times.
I hate.
Ooh, they have China in 10 words too. That's the best. China in 10 words is by the same guy. It's a memoir / historical account of the way that Chinese totalitarianism and communism took over China in the middle of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Yeah, they literally have it. It's $10 a month.
Yeah.
And you just have everything I've searched they have.
Yeah.
People stop getting Audible.
Yeah.
I know that Audible advertises for people. Audible sucks ass.
stupid.
I will be turning down any offer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's literally everybody dies. And the guy just finds meaning in it and just continues living.
Nice.
I wept.
Yeah.
Like literally.
I really do love narratives. I'm not anti-narrative.
No, you love film. Like
yes, I do. It's just that reading a novel is just too much.
Well, literally. So I was telling somebody, it's like I read Sexual Personae halfway through.
Yeah.
8 times.
Yeah.
And there's 24 chapters. I know I got through chapter 11 many times.
Yeah.
And it took me a very long time to do that every time. I have really, really bad attention issues.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if that's spurred on by. I think that's a dispositional thing. I have a very hard time with attention. Really focusing on anything long enough to get it done.
Yeah.
That is exacerbated by the social media issue and all that.
Yeah,
whatever. Reading is really, really hard for me specifically.
No, me
I can't.
too,
I
yeah.
can't sit down and read. I mean, I can. It has to be like To Live. I read, but it's that good.
Yeah. No, if you ever see me reading, and I'm not saying this to be funny, you would think that I'm a retard. Because
You're like,
yes, this is me just reading. I'm like, that is me the whole time because like to
don't you
focus,
hate it, Amanda?
like to focus, like I would read a sentence and my mind wanders off. And so I didn't pay attention to what I read. So I have to go back. I have to read it again. I have to read it out loud. I have to hear myself read it.
Yeah.
And I can't read to myself. I used to get in trouble in elementary school because they're like, it's reading period, and you have to read to yourself. And when I'm reading to myself, I don't even notice it, but I'm like, I'm like,
I have to read out loud.
Yeah.
I can't.
and so it's it's not a pleasant thing. And so when somebody wants me to read a novel, so I'm gonna fine, I'll read it. When I took that one class, I had to read the Brothers Karamazov. I was like, fine, I'm gonna read it. But you have to realize that what you're asking me to do, there's like probably 1,000 things that is easier for me to do. You ask me, hey, go bench, do 100 reps of benches right now. That is easier for me to do than reading like 10 pages of a novel. Because reading that 10 pages will be so laborious that I didn't enjoy it. I might enjoy the meaning, I might enjoy the story, but I'm unable then to weep. I'm unable to get
Listen
into
to
it
you.
emotionally.
Listen to.
But
To
listening,
Live.
I can.
You have. Yeah. I mean, have you gotten scribed already? Have you?
No, I'm going to do that for the next book that we're for this week.
Yeah. We're not going to announce that. I'm going to do a teaser, but
Yeah.
You have to listen to Live.
Yeah.
And if you like it enough, let's do an episode on it because I am passionate.
Well, let's just do it then.
It's an episode.
Yeah.
After.
Or for this next one, I don't mind.
Well, no, we're doing the other thing.
I didn't know we already said, but okay.
We did. We did a poll. We did a thing.
Okay. I don't remember this, but yes.
Yeah, that'll get me emotional.
Okay, yeah.
But because I do think that it's very important for people to understand that we do appreciate art and we do like art.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't just hate everything. There are things that are enough for us.
With the things that we really would enjoy, people just don't want us to read it, How about read, Madness and Civilization?
We're recommending something to the audience now.
Yes.
I'm just remembering To Live. God.
Yeah.
Do you know that my mother has made the comparison between To Live and The Good Earth? It's another thing about the Chinese Revolution.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's the Chinese Revolution.
Okay.
I really think you're gonna like To Live.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have anything else to say? We're over 2 hours. Do you have anything else to say about Sexual Personae?
No.
This one actually was not as long
Yeah.
as the Foucault episode.
Yeah.
My closing statements are: I really like Camille Paglia a lot in every aspect. I think that she is extremely well spoken. I love listening to her talk. I think that all of her observations are good. I don't necessarily know if her conclusions are or not, depending on the circumstance. This is not a screed in any way against Camille Paglia.
Yeah.
I just don't know why Sexual Personae had to be written. I don't know. Because reading it, it's essentially she superimposed her own struggle with sexual archetypes, which everyone kind of has a little bit. I get it. It's like experiencing the sexual archetype is an experience that everyone has to varying degrees.
Yeah.
That's a thing. It's a thing that everyone lives. But I don't know. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend Sexual Personae as like if I was going to make a reading list, it's not on there.
Yes. Yeah.
Vamps and Tramps might be.
Yeah.
There's other stuff that she's done that I like better. But I just don't. I didn't get anything out of reading it. Aside from, I mean, there are. I did. I mean, it's not. I didn't. I got things out of reading it. Her commentary I did enjoy.
Yeah.
I liked it better than Madison Civilization by quite a lot.
Yeah. I did. I don't know if I liked it better than History of Sexuality though.
Oh, I haven't gone through.
Yeah. I would say both of those.
Should we cover that at some point down the road?
Yeah, I would say a lot of his observation historically of history of sexuality I found more intriguing than her commentary on the sexual persona. But other than that, I think, for me the issues just kind of are similar to what I've had with Foucault and Michael Knowles.
Everything we've covered so far.
Yeah, it's like
I like Michael Knowles the best.
Yes,
I agree with him the most.
I would say he is the most correct.
He's the most correct.
He didn't give the adequate reasons of why he is correct.
Yeah,
and that's the issue that I have with it. It's like
the only correctness we know is because we can extrapolate it, where he is internally.
People. I think many of these authors just need to be more brave, and even if you are wrong, at least you fucking took the shot. So like, this is my strong stance, is what I'm saying. But
we're eventually going to find something like that.
Yes, I have.
We have. Well, I know that's wrong, but it took the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, or even that's right. I mean, if you really read the Contra Gentiles, it's like this. It is such a good. I think it's 5 volumes. It's such a good file. Anybody, if you just want to read it, it's like, holy shit.
The Summa Contra Gentiles, from which the show derives its name.
He just knocks.
People told me not to name the show something Latin, right?
Oh, really?
It was really like, don't name it something Latin.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll try. And you were like, dude, how long did we labor over a name?
Oh,
it's like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
I think the other title they one was called Men Talking, which I thought would have been good.
The Men Are Talking.
Yeah, the Men Are Talking, something like that. Yes.
Men Talking. So remember, that was Contra Gentiles, the Men Are Talking. And that was the old description of the show, too.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Like, I don't remember what it was. It was like, it was something about the men are talking. I don't know what it is now, but what did I name the show description?
I don't even remember now.
I have to find it. What is it? Podcast settings.
Mm-hmm.
Irreverent discourse regarding philosophy, politics, culture, and history. Put your big boy pants on. The men are talking.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Still. Put your big boy pants on. The men are talking. I love that. Thanks, Anne Marie. I wonder if I should let her use my account, and we should do To Live next week or something.
Okay, yeah.
With her.
Yeah.
I think she'd get something out of it too.
Okay.
Or something. We can delay
we do need one more final episode with her. So
I know we have no more to say for the moment, but
yeah. All right.
Anyway, we good?
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I gotta pee.